I'm Claire Wagner. I'm the Marine Region Habitat Conservation Program Manager at the Department of Fish and Wildlife. And today I'm going to just provide a brief recap of the Marine Protected Area or MPA petition evaluation process to date, and then talk about the department's proposed next steps and timeline for the BIN 2 petition evaluation that we're anticipating through the remainder of the year. Next slide, please. All right, this slide includes an overview of our journey thus far through the MPA petitions that the Commission received in 2023 that are proposing changes to the MPA network. This was an outgrowth of the 2023 MPA Decadal Management Review that included this recommendation to apply what is learned to support proposed changes to the MPA network and management program. So at the end of 2023, the Commission received 20 petitions from tribes and members of the public proposing various changes to these MPAs. And then since then, these petitions have been referred to the department to first develop an approach for how to evaluate the MPA petitions, then evaluate them and develop recommendations. Last year, we made some good progress, working closely with Commission staff, and the Commission took action on 5 of the petitions in December. So these were referred to as our BIN 1 petitions. And, these were petitions that had proposed actions that were more straightforward and where the department had enough information to evaluate and develop recommendations for them in a relatively short period of time. The remaining 15 petitions are in BIN 2 and primarily because they're more complex. Towards the end of last year, the Commission gave the BIN 2 petitioners the opportunity to take some more time, further refine their petitions, do some additional outreach, and then submit amended petitions. We are anticipating receiving amendments to 9 of the remaining 15 petitions, and then the deadline to submit amended petitions to the Commission is tomorrow. Last year, we kicked off an internal working group for the BIN 2 petitions that include staff from the Department, Ocean Protection Council, and Commission staff. And this was really just to talk through the petitions evaluation process and get feedback to inform the department's evaluation and recommendation. So this is a group we're meeting next week, and we'll continue to convene this as we move forward. So that is the very quick version to bring us up to date. I am going to talk in detail on what we think this year looks like. So if you want more details or read the petitions, please visit the department's MPA petition story map. And I have a slide later for folks to access this. Next slide, please. All right. This flowchart outlines the 3-phase approach for the initial MPA petition evaluation process that was approved by the Commission last year. The first phase is where the department sorted the whole petitions into those 2 initial bins based on level of complexity and policy guidance needed. As I said, the department has completed the evaluation of BIN 1 petitions, and the Commission took action on those in December. Those BIN 1 petitions that were granted or supported with an alternative pathway are now mostly just awaiting implementation. Implementation is going to vary based on the actions in there. Some are going to require a regulatory package. Others won't need a regulatory change, but they will take staff time and resources to implement those. So this leaves us with these 15 more complex BIN 2 petitions that approximately have I think it's 67 proposed actions that need further evaluation before the department can make recommendations and complete the 3rd phase. Next slide, please. This brings us to our proposed process, timeline, and milestones for the BIN 2 petitions through the remainder of this year. And just to orient you to the slide a little bit, the items on the left of the slide are things that would happen at MRC or at a Commission meeting. Then the things on the right are things that CDFW staff would need to do in coordination with Commission staff, the working group, in response to some of the discussion and direction that we're receiving. So some of the things on the right can't happen until some of the stuff on the left is accomplished. As I said, BIN 2 petitions are due to the Commission tomorrow. We're really eagerly awaiting those. During our regular coordination meetings, Commission staff let us know that they're anticipating sharing the summary of the BIN 2 petition amendments broken down into their actions at the April Commission meeting. And this is really going to help orient all of us to know what's changed in the petition. Between the April commission meeting and the July MRC, the department's going to focus on a couple things. First, taking a look at the Bin 2 petitions, particularly the amended ones, and following up with the petitioners if needed for any clarification, so we just have a really solid understanding of what they're asking for and what they're hoping to get out of it. Additionally, we're going to be refining the evaluation framework for the Bin 2 petitions. So the refined Bin 2 evaluation framework is going to build on the evaluation framework that we used for the Bin 1 petitions, but we are planning to include additional components from the framework that was approved by the commission in August 2023, just to account for the additional complexity of the Bin 2 petition. We anticipate sharing the refined Bin 2 evaluation framework at July MRC so that we can get feedback and make sure that we have buy-in on the proposed evaluation approach before we move forward with the evaluations. Additionally, at July MRC, the department's also going to share the Bin 2 petitions grouped into categories based on similar themes or proposed actions. This is in response to a suggestion from the commission at the February meeting, and it also just seemed to work very well for the Bin 1 petitions. We're also going to share a simplified process overview to help communicate not only the petition process, but highlight that there is an implementation step that's going to come after for the petitions that moves forward. So I think there's been some confusion. Some folks have seen that Bin 1 is complete and they may think that they're effective. The evaluation is complete. Folks have, the commission has decided, but there's more steps after that process for the actions to be implemented. So this is just a process overview to help improve communication around that. All right, so then the refined Bin 2 evaluation framework would go to the August commission meeting for full consideration, as well as the Bin 2 petition groupings. And then if the petition evaluation framework is approved in August, the department would move forward with analyzing the Bin 2 petitions and developing recommendations, which we could bring to the MRC in November for discussion. And then from here, we didn't really want to speculate on the subsequent schedule or milestones for the Bin 2 petitions, as we really think it's going to depend on how the discussions at July and November unfold. We acknowledge, there may be additional steps as these discussions progress. Last meeting, we heard the desire to potentially meet as a committee as a whole. There's still some discussion on if and when that would happen. And then another factor, we really look forward to working with the commission staff and the commission to identify the appropriate review and discussion pathways for the NPA petitions that were submitted, particularly by the tribes, and then potentially for those that have a tribal component. All right, that's the proposed process. It may seem like a lot of steps, but we also know that these are really important decisions. And so what this does is it gives us plenty of opportunities to get feedback and direction from the commissioners, as well as for tribes and members of the public to engage with our process and decision making. Next slide, please. All right, once again, our MPA petition story map is the place to go for all information on the petition. Stay up to date. We are planning on updating this once we have the amended Bin 2 petition. So please scan the QR code or you can navigate through our website. Next slide, please. All right, finally, just to wrap up, a reminder that the petition process is just one of the 28 Decadal Management review recommendations, including the 13 recommendations that were identified as near-term priorities in the left column. As you heard, we're largely focused on recommendation 4, plugging away, making good progress, but our goal is to continue to work with our partners just to implement the other 80+ management actions from the DMR in the next 10-year adaptive management cycle. So, we are making progress on some of these other recommendations, albeit more slowly, but we do anticipate being able to move forward with many of these faster once we've sort of cleared some of the petition workload. And then just a reminder, if you want more details on the status of the progress that the department and our partners made on these last year, that's in the annual report that was provided in December. All right, next slide. And thanks, that just concludes the presentation.
Great, Claire, thank you. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to take comments now on everything we've had in item 5 so far. I want to give a, and then we'll go on to the next couple subjects.
Before we do that, can I just ask one clarifying question? Thank you so much. Wonderful presentation, very clear, super appreciate it. just the timeline and setting expectations for what's happening when through December. I appreciate that you didn't speculate beyond that because who knows? Yeah, but really, really helpful. I just want to say again how incredibly valuable I think the story map is. I use it all the time. I have it. I have a bookmark tab on it, and I look at it just all the time. It's just so valuable. And I love that you did organize it. It's like you can do it by petition number or by region or by the kind of change. That was a really brilliant idea. Whoever had that idea.
Kara Gonzalez.
Shout out to Kara Gonzalez.
Thank you, Kara.
Super smart. It makes it really handy. And I've used all three different ways of looking. I did have one question. In July at the MRC, one of the things will be proposed like groupings of proposed actions, petitioned actions. I was just curious, and I don't want to get ahead of it. If you don't know, that's okay. But are you thinking of grouping it by like the type of change, like it's, you know, the what's like allowable take versus boundaries versus additive? Or are you thinking of doing it by geography? I can imagine lots of different ways to do the grouping, or by, for lack of better words, easy versus hard, or, you know, like, do you have a sense of, or is it like a substantive thing? Or, yeah, I'm just curious how you're thinking of grouping it.
Yeah, so the caveat being, amendments are coming in. We're,
100%.
you know, we're not anticipating anything like wildly new and different. I don't know. We don't know. But aside from that, you know, I do think they're sort of grouped in maybe 2 or 3 main clusters as to like, I think these are more straightforward, not as straightforward as bin one, but definitely more straightforward. You know, some of them I think, it's depending on how much information we have available, which I think will be a bit of a question is, you know, how much information do we have today? What's readily available? And then the one to just start thinking about that I kind of signaled to is ones that were either tribally submitted or have a tribal component. And so those ones, I think we just want to make sure we know what y'all want us to do with those. We'll, you know, put them through the same evaluation that everything gets. But I think those will have some additional probable pathways to get close to the finish line.
Thank you.
We're gonna take public comment now. We're only taking public comment on 5A, 1, 2, and 2A and B. I'm gonna be a really big, real hard ass here, and a lot of people are gonna be pissed at me by the end of this discussion, but we don't need to know whether you like MPAs or not. We don't need to argue about why they're good or bad. Please don't. That's not what this topic was about. We don't need to know your feelings on any petitions. That's gonna happen in November. We don't even need to hear exactly how you think they should be grouped, and that's the current thing we just talked about. All we're talking about, can we put up, Claire, your slide that showed the process? If we can put up that slideshow again, I'm gonna put that slide up, and for MPAs, the only 2 things we can talk about are enforcement and Assistant Chief's report, or whether that flow chart of the process makes sense to you. This is not a general MPA discussion. So I'm going to cut you off if you start talking about that. And we've got like 20 people online, maybe less now, gone up and down. I'm sure we have a bunch in the room. And I'm also going to limit you a little bit on time. We don't have a stopwatch here, but in order to let everybody have a chance to speak, I'm going to cut you off. And feel free to say, I agree with the previous speaker. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Let's see who in the room would like to speak on this topic. Please come up to the desk. First 3 people anyway. Or 4, or 3 agents. That's good. So again, this is what we were talking about. Does this order of process make sense to you or not? Is what we're looking for.
Or something on the enforcement.
Or on the enforcement, as I said, yeah. Or the other things we talked about. Yep, or the GILNet, or the by the numbers. All those, I'm not was worried about those ones that having people going on about whether they like it or not.
Probably most, yeah.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Katie Wild Coast. Actually, I had a question for you, for if there's any like fishers that are interested in participating in volunteering, what's the best way for them to sign up in that volunteer recruitment? To reach out to you directly?
Yeah, we can do that,
Okay.
or through the email that's in the presentation, it's the R7 Journal entry.
Okay, great, thank you. And then I also, for process, for the groupings, was just thinking about, just like want to ask if there's an opportunity as I imagine a lot of people in this room, travel and online, come to the meetings because they're interested in particular specific ones. So wondering if there's just like when we're communicating that to so that way they can focus on like the agenda of like, oh, okay, cool, I don't need to come until this meeting because this is the one I'm really passionate about.
Great suggestion, great help. Yeah, we'll try to be as specific as possible for any given meeting, what's going to be discussed at that meeting.
Wonderful, thank you.
Try to be clear.
And then I know that for the full commission committee, that meeting that's coming up as well, just want seeking clarity. And I know that that's early on and I know we're early in the process, but because we're talking through process, just wanted to have understand which petitions would be in that kind of committee, which I think is, not until after this TBD, after December, but just having clarity as we're talking through the process of that would be really helpful.
I think that goes to Samantha's question, how, later in the process, we're going to figure out how we group them and then that'll determine where things go.
Where they go.
And which ones go to the full commission. I mean, if you watched the February meeting, you saw I tried to press and see maybe we could just select certain ones that everyone's most interested in. We didn't quite get there, but I know we will get there eventually. And 1000% agree, setting expectations for this is the day we're talking about petition X. We want to be able to do that so that it's really clear.
So thank you.
Michael Quill, LA Waterkeeper. First thing, I want to give props out to the LED team. It's been really great working with the LED team out on the water, getting responses from our wardens and getting some citations written on the leads that I put down with CalTIP. So props out, and it's really great to build that community. And then when I do tell the story of what happens, it keeps people from doing the same kind of things. And so, and this LA Waterkeeper approves of this. We really think that this can be helping the community back together after some division here if we get a clear beat on what's going down. So I appreciate the effort going on. I know you're getting paid tons of money to do this, but just many blessings what you're doing and the patience that you show. Thank you.
Sure. You may have to cut me off because I'm not sure. I just had a bunch of questions about the evaluation framework. Also, Sandy Ellsworth with NRDC. Thank you very much for this very clear timeline. That's something that many of us have requested and we're really grateful to have it. So thanks for your work on that. For the evaluation framework, so if we have recommendations on how that should look or factors to be considered, would that be, when is the time to provide that?
Probably the July MRC, I would think.
The July conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, yes, because then you can react to it, but if you know now, we're building it now.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like if you have ideas for things you think must be included in it, it seems like sooner the better would be for the department to hear that so they can.
Because otherwise, I think if there's
Otherwise you're
significant
reacting
changes
to-
after July, we won't make it to August, right? Because,
Right. Right. Okay. So yes, go ahead and submit. I would, submit them.
Okay, great. And then is the foundation of the framework, the 2023 considerations? Yes. Okay, great. And then, I guess we would recommend having, this be a collaborative process with, the department, commission, obviously, and OPC. Is that something you're considering?
Yeah, I mentioned the BIN to petition working group.
Yeah.
So that's something in collaboration with the commission staff as well and OPC. So that'll be something to help us, refine and build the internal products before they,
Great, thanks. And then, just last thing, if we can specify, I guess, the leading of different criteria, that would also be helpful and just help, I think, in terms of kind of people understanding, oh, is this a fair process?
Yeah, but I think that'd be on the department in the first case, and then in the end, whether MRC and or commission in terms of how we, what the weighting is gonna depend on 5 commissioners talking about deciding it to some extent, right?
Yeah, I don't know that that we will be able to make some kind of broad brush. Here's how various considerations are weighted. It's going to be case by case.
The department can do it on its recommendations, right?
For sure.
But it won't, but that doesn't mean we're bound to them.
Certainly.
Great, thanks, Andy.
I'm Allison, MPA Collaborative Network again. Just passing on some questions I've been getting a lot. At what point, I've been getting, especially from cities, that are waiting for the point in this process where there is a scientific evaluation of the petitions? What's a good answer for them? How does that get weighed into the evaluation process? 'Cause I think a lot of them are waiting for that type of report.
Let's listen to that. Everybody think, when is the,
Are there gonna be?
I think it depends what you mean by scientific evaluation.
That was my question, because that's very broad. So if there's specific elements that you're looking for, you know, that would be better than scientific. Are we looking at size and spacing, you know, what factors are we looking at?
I think they're looking for a little bit more information than what was included in the bin one evaluation. I think they're thinking about like, what's the impact? What would be ecological benefits? How are they doing currently? Is there a need? These are the questions that are coming up in city council meetings and other discussions.
I mean, one tool, the department, I'll buy you some time, but one tool that is going to be available that we're going to hear about later today that we didn't have available for bin one is C-Sketch, which, as you know, is, we're going to get to see a demo of it, but can see an MPA petition, see, okay, with this, if this MPA petition went through, it would, encompass X% or X square mileage of habitat Y. That would, then you would get a sense of like, that would be, Y miles between, habitat Z and the other habitat Z. So you'd get a sense of like any spacing issues that come up when overlaid with the original size and spacing guidelines from the science advisory team. You'd be able to look at things like level of protection, which MPAs are minimum size. So, and then I think really the decisions about like, okay, so there can be this much habitat of this particular kind of habitat encompassed in a new protected area at presumably, some benefit or some cost to the community potentially, and those are the kinds of conversations that we would have with everyone in the room. And then those decisions are made by a full commission. In terms of a specific scientific evaluation, and again, I think it really depends what you mean by that term for each MPA. I guess I'll hand it over to Craig.
Well, yeah, I think that's, if we're gonna go down that road, we need to be thoughtful as to really clearly define what that is. So like the economic analysis, right? Like that will take a lot of time and effort if we're gonna try to compare the economic costs versus benefits to adhere to the previous size and spacing guidelines. And so that, my understanding is that's not what we were intending to do here. But if that's what's being, so I think this is where we gotta really think about this July meeting, because and understand what we're bringing, because what we took away from the last meeting is we kind of wanted a cheap and cheerful, not do an MLPA 2.0, quick analysis, we'll make some policy decisions on this. That isn't that.
No, and it can't be. When I say benefits to the community, potential, I don't even like to use the word costs to the community, right? I'll just say community context. I think I think that's what we get from having discussions with stakeholders, right?
So we could do, I think, some qualitative
Exactly.
metrics,
Yeah.
maybe arrows up or down kind of thing, but
Yeah.
going beyond that will be a couple more pages on that timeline.
But in terms of habitat and ecological, like we will have some of that to the extent data layers are available. We will have that in C-Sketch.
And the department will be referencing C-Sketch in their evaluation. I'm just trying to make that connection because they can look at C-Sketch themselves, but they're waiting for CDFW as the professionals to kind of weigh in.
So we'll be using the same data that's feeding into C-Sketch, but on the back end, it just takes more computer power and brain power to run the system GIS. So we'll get to learn more about C-Sketch pretty soon here. So same data with just a little bit more like resolution behind it. The reason that's very, very small amount of resolution gets taken out of C-Sketch is so it can run fast. so everybody can take a look at it, so.
But that's an answer I can pass on too, so that's perfect. I have one.
Just to manage
Okay. We have the
expectations,
extra
they might not follow Eden, right?
Right.
Like,
Totally.
there's gonna be
Yeah.
so many other factors in there that I wouldn't set an expectation that everything's getting scientific evaluation just
Right.
because
Mhm.
Right.
there's.
And maybe that's part of the evaluation criteria.
Right.
You know, these are.
Yeah.
I'll have to be looking individually,
These certain
we'll see, so that's jumping ahead of it, I understand your concern, but
Need more.
let's see where.
Could happen.
I'm just reporting, need to report back. The other question that we had, there's these great conversations that are happening within the collaborative about potential compromises. But at the end of the day, they're like, yeah, but I'm going to oppose, yeah, but I'm still going to go with most of my original petition. Is there some part of this process, and I hate this term and I apologize for using it, for the sausage making that's gonna happen? Or is it gonna be like bin one where it's a kind of a yes or a no?
There's inherently, there's 5 commissioners, right? There's always inherently that time and place there. But it sounds like there's gonna be a working group and some of that can happen there. So
Okay.
it's not gonna happen in one place and it can happen right up to the last minute, all right? Especially on some of the more controversial MPAs and, for petitions, that may be the case. It may not happen until, after the final
Until
meeting.
later in the thing.
Just to clarify the working group, I think, when we refer working group, that's an internal working group.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought you were
We're
talking
not
about-
gonna sit down with.
Because there was the question before about is there gonna be a public place where that happens? And the
No.
answer is no, it's only gonna happen at the MRC and the
We just
commission.
don't
So
have
that,
the capacity.
got it, okay, because that wasn't clear from the previous answer. Okay, so, yeah, it's gonna
The
So you work off-
sausage needs to be made when you submit the amended petition.
Okay, so I guess that's my question is that it's either it's what's in the amended petition, that's gonna be a yes or a no. There's not gonna be room
No,
for,
well, there's always gonna,
Okay.
until there's a vote, there's always more compromise that can happen, as
Yeah.
you've seen on recent things.
Okay.
But there's not gonna be kind of a core
right,
process there was the first time where there's lots of work done before it gets to the commission. That's just not gonna happen here. That's not what this process is for about.
But in the commission, we color outside the lines all the time,
Yeah.
right? Like we're always, so it's not like approve this petition exactly how it is or don't, or support it exactly how it is or don't. If people want to show up and say, I like this petition with this tweak, I mean, these things happen all the time.
Why?
yeah, wonderful. And lastly, just to support Katie, just with discussions, if we can group them in a reasonable way when we're having these discussions. Regionally is kind of what I'd recommend, because then you show up once for all the petitions that are affecting you in your region. That seems to be what I'm hearing, so.
Yeah, I think it's gonna have to be on a case by case. There may be several groupings, or maybe, because some of them aren't geographic, right?
Yeah.
And especially as we're starting to look, we're moving out of the regional evaluations that we did to a statewide evaluation. So we'll be looking at, if there's trade-offs, looking at trade-offs that might extend beyond regional boundaries.
And I'm just
It
thinking access.
will be one of the ways in which it could be, but once we see them all, it'll be.
Okay, I'm just thinking access because, a lot of people have to take days off work, off the water and stuff, so just trying to make it easy.
Understood.
Oh, thank you.
Ashley.
Okay, yeah, Ashley Gibbs with EAC of West Marin. I wanted to speak briefly on 5A1 first. So thank you, Chief Ford, for your enforcement presentation. It's always great to hear about the new data and your focus on MPAs. I just wanted to speak briefly about, so we focus on Marin County and Duxbury Reef, and we do see a lot of potential violations there, and we do provide education. We encourage our docents to report to CalTIP where appropriate. And we've already developed like a strong relationship with our, I think we have a fairly new, like the last year, new warden to the area, and he came out to our docent training, which was great. But I guess just not seeing it listed there, I just wanted to kind of raise the awareness that, sometimes there are, quite a few additional violations that aren't, that don't make it to that data level, because it's hard, like due to the remote location, for them to be confirmed, cited. And then we do also submit that with our MPA watch reports, but I just kind of wanted to raise awareness to that and thank you for the work that you're doing. Okay, now I'll try to be brief. I know a lot of things have already been said on 5A2. So first, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for the department staff for all the hard work that you're doing on petitions. Well, I guess the first question is, any more clarity on bin one next steps at this point? Or I know 2 more meetings, but
Bin one's on hold until we get.
basically on hold till bin 2. Okay, okay.
We can't do it all.
Rip it all
If there's a regulatory changes that we need to proceed with, it's best.
as a package.
And
Okay.
we don't have we could do one or the other. So if we get directed to move forward with bin one, we would have to stop.
Okay.
There's your answer. They're
And I'll
on.
just say, we're down a specialist position on our MPA team due to recent cuts, so we've lost some pretty significant
Right.
capacity. And again, we
Okay.
still don't have a supervisor.
Yeah.
And that position has been held up for the better part of 4 months now, you hired, 5 months?
Well, thank you for what you're doing with the limited staff capacity. I know that can be really challenging. Okay, so one other question, love story map, C-Sketch, excited to hear more about it today. One thing we've mentioned is there is this challenge of, like, so we submitted stuff November 30th, or there's our petition, then we've supplemented, we still probably have some more information we want to add. And I know that, like, there's some constraints where you can't, like, is it possible to see that data in one place? Or we've kind of had some discussions with staff, like maybe we should resubmit as one big package, but I don't want to make more work. I want to make it more useful. Susan?
Yeah, I'm not sure I don't know if you're talking about letters of support, because I wouldn't call that data.
So, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's letters of
so-
support. I know we have like some updated MPA data that we want to add. I mean, yeah, there could be a distinction what type of material it is,
Yeah, I
but
think there's not gonna be a tabulation of pro and against, that kind of thing.
yeah.
But importantly, if you have additional data that you've collected that you would like to be recognized, then you need to submit that as soon as possible through the commission office, and we will share it with the department. So we have it formally, and we can append it to your petition. I recognize we have had a lot of, we get a lot of comments about individual petitions, and we do have a record of them bundled together. I know it's hard not to have access to that in the public. It's hard enough for us to make sure we're sharing them with each other. So we recognize that.
But still, that's the base protocol. It's just a supplement to the main commission, and then that's shared with the department.
Yes.
And okay, well, I mean, hopefully if we can just continue to dialogue if there's anything else as petitioners that we can provide to you.
Well, and it's helpful to know that you have some additional information. Give us a heads up. Send us
We get it.
a joint
The
email.
sooner the better.
Get
Yeah.
it in, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then I think we talked about this a little. I mean, I think this has kind of already been said, but basically just everyone wants to be, the more specificity we can get about, I mean, it sounds like probably it's not until November when we're going to get to the substance, but whatever, so people can just focus efforts, make sure to be at the right meeting where there's substantive discussion.
We want that more than anybody.
Yeah. Everyone wants that, right? Well, I think that's probably said enough. So, and I agree with what's been said.
Vamos valores with us. So just briefly, we appreciate an improvement for the timeline.
Thank you.
Cool, yeah, Casper is asking here with CaliforniaSurfishing.net. Couple of things I want to talk about NPA violations from, if you have statistics from like the shore fishing perspective, because my brother and I, we fish from shore 3 or 4 times a week. We're connected to hundreds and thousands of other anglers, whether through real life or, on social media. I did think it was really interesting how the Bolsa Chica one has 80 violations because, I don't know much about Bolsa Chica. I don't fish that area that often, but I know many people that have, by mistake fished NPAs or not by mistake. And I also know, videos that are on YouTube that are popular. I'm talking strictly from a shore fishing perspective, where people are shore fishing, in really protected areas. So I was wondering if there is, if the statistics can be broken down to seeing violations, from NPA violations from shore. And I was also wondering the Bolsa Chica violations, because I know it's like a basin, it's like a, inlet kind of thing. I wonder if those are from shore, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So Bolsa Chica, Basin SMCA, that there's no boats in there, so that's all gonna be. For our report management system, we don't have a way of separating, an NPA citation for when you're on shore versus on a vessel. There's ways that we could try to pull that out depending on, maybe the officer, if they're assigned to a boat or if they're more, working more from the inland squad that are out by coast. But, that's something that we can look at improving our report management system in the future. So maybe separate that out if we really feel that that's important to delineate a vessel citation versus a shoreline citation.
Yeah, not going back, but if going forward, if you can do that relatively easily, that I think would be a useful thing for all of us.
Yeah, I think it would be useful. I noticed what you said about Bolsa is that you had juveniles fishing that area and you give them a warning and stuff, but then when they keep doing it, that's when you guys really crack down. Like I've noticed that with a few people that I've talked to that have run into enforcement while fishing marine protected areas, they get a warning and they go on their way. Maybe that's the way to do it until they become multiple offenders. But I would also say that, fishing 3 or 4 times from shore, in Southern California, especially not going to, I don't typically go to, like, you know, the popular piers and stuff like that. I'll run into you guys maybe once or twice a year, something like that. So I would recommend, I don't know, within your budget, stepping up the shoreline enforcement. If there's any way we can help, you know, let us know.
And I would say a really important tool for that would be the CAL tip. If you're seeing violations, keep getting those CAL tips in.
Yeah.
If, you know, an officer isn't happen to be in the area on patrol right there where they can respond immediately, at least we get a report and we can kind of start looking at hotspots from the CAL tip and like, hey, that's what happened at Bolsa Chica SMCA is getting a lot of CAL tips. Land managers got involved there and they were really kind of shouting, hey, there's a big problem here. So if you see violations like that, definitely recommend. You know.
Sure. I think the way that we'll probably approach it is kind of how you guys do it. If it seems like it's like, you know, a kid or like a guy with his kids and, you know, they don't, you know, they probably don't know or whatever, I'll just have a conversation with them or something. But if it seems like it's something a little more, I don't know, nefarious, I don't know if that's the right word to use, then probably go through the CAL tip route.
And outreach definitely helps from everyone in this room, online. The more outreach, the better. So you can prevent someone from going in there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna cut you guys off now.
Okay. Oh, sorry about that.
Do you have another thing else?
Yeah, I wanted to add about the evaluation process. What Calla was talking about, it sounds like, okay, so the final amendments are being submitted tomorrow, but it sounds like once it goes through the MRC and FGC, there is room. It's not just a strict yes or no, there is room. Because we've actually really, I want to point out that we've had a lot of really good conversations with a lot of the organizations that have submitted these petitions. And, you know, some of the amendments are going to be submitted in a way that we feel doesn't represent surf fishermen, and some of them are. So it would be great if they're, you know, once we get deeper into the process, there's a way to color.
Yeah, for you individually and for everybody, you know, that work doesn't have to stop just because the amendments came in, right? You can just continue to have discussion. I mean, encourage those kind of discussions between any stakeholders who have differences. The more you work out it, we love it when you show up at the microphone and say, hey, guess what? We've worked out a solution on this one. How do you feel about it? You tend to get the support of the commission when that happens, right? So that dialogue can continue right up including the hallway right outside before we make a vote. You guys can be talking about, right? So yeah, we encourage that to continue.
Yeah, they've been really informative. The dialogues with both the boat fishermen, the spear guys,
love to hear that.
all of them. So
love to hear that. Thank you. All right. Is there anybody else that's going to want to speak in the room? Please come up now. Mayor, go ahead.
First, I want to really thank Assistant Chief Eric Cord for that presentation, and I want to ask him if it's available to the public somehow.
Yeah, we're going to post it separately on the website.
The commission website.
The commission website.
That sounds.
Asked to do it, but we will. Yes,
that's a great presentation. I really liked it. This is going to be surprising, but from what I've understood with respect to Bolsa Chica, what's happening is the kids are fishing legally on the beach, and there's a bridge that denotes a boundary, and there was hopscotching into the MPA underneath that bridge, and so there was kind of like peer competitive pressure to push them in there. And so the department was pushing back against that and ultimately had to start issuing citations. And I expect it will work. I also want to provide a comment on Todd Neer's efforts with respect to the logbooks. So as you know, I work with the Groundfish Advisory Subpanel at the Pacific Council. And one of the things that and I mentioned this before, that we come up on is the recreational catch data is relatively slow coming in. It's a result of getting effort from the CPFD logs coupled with source data to quantify, to estimate exactly how much of what kind of fish were caught. Improving those logbooks will do two things for us. It will cause us to be able to have that information much more quickly at in the council process, instead of being 2 months behind as numbers get crunched. Hopefully it'll be as current as the commercial data is currently. Most of it is. So that would be greatly appreciated. The other component of that we're especially appreciative of is kind of vetting this out with a couple or 3 or 4 CPFD operators in the beginning. I think it's a great approach It'll help those CPFV operators provide feedback. And hopefully we don't expose the entire fleet to something which is not really as efficient as it could be and generate a bunch of bad will before the thing is even out. So I think it's a terrific approach, and I hope you support it. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Anupam Sokin with Petition and 4 questions. All right. For the evaluation framework, I think it'll be really important to ensure that OPC is able to weigh in on that, given other statewide initiatives that I will not mention. I know you mentioned OPC weighing in on the actual petition evaluation through that working group, but I think the evaluation framework itself will be critical to have their partnership, I hope. That's part of it. Okay. Yes. Okay. And then as far as the timeline, so we have an evaluation framework that gets, I guess, approved by the full commission, and then the petition groupings and framework get approved in August, and then there's recommendations in November, and that feels like not enough time to make recommendations.
November is initial discussions of specific MPAs, right? Specific MPA recommendations.
We were intending to come back, we were intending, again, based on previous discussions, that we were told this needed to move quickly, that we're going to propose a framework that would allow us to evaluate quickly. And we would, if that evaluation framework was approved by the commission in August, we would be prepared to come back with preliminary department recommendations in November. And it is very tight.
Yes, but that doesn't mean, I don't think there's an expectation that we would then act on those recommendations in November. It's a first look at the recommendations, I would imagine.
If I could add, Craig, I think in part what Craig and his team are responding to is Director Bonham's request that the department be finished up by the end of the year.
And the general consensus that this is taking too long and we need to move faster. So we will go fast to go slow.
Yeah, I mean, I expected that we would be, because we'd be receiving the department recommendations on specific MPAs, and because the first discussion about specific MPA petitions would be at the November MRC, that would be, I didn't personally anticipate, of course, Eric just went to the restroom, but I didn't anticipate that we would be making receiving and making recommendations all inside one meeting.
Yeah, and I don't think we were presuming what the MRC or the committee of the whole or the commission would do with our recommendations.
Yeah.
But I think we were working toward getting recommendations on full petitions to the MRC in November. And yes, it does go fast.
Fishon did a review of all the BIN 2 petitions, and it took about 2 months, and your review, and granted you have more staff capacity and more tools, but
Yeah, it just depends on how we define a review.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
so like we could take 2 days, 2 months, 2 years, it just depends on the criteria that we're evaluating.
And I remember the microphone's over here.
Oh, sorry, table. And then my other concern was data that's used and data transparency. C-Sketch is a great tool, but it sounds like you're using the same information, but maybe more. I think making sure all of that is sort of available for us to be able to understand where recommendations are coming from will be really important. And also noting what the data gaps are, I think will be really valuable to future adaptive management processes, and I don't want to miss that opportunity. And then my last thing was there was talk about at the last full commission meeting about a committee of the whole versus MRC, where things are getting decided. And so if there's any clarity that you can offer within this about who will be where and where things will be decided.
Yeah,
on that really helpful.
On that one, that gets back to, I think Katie maybe had that question. I mean, we haven't talked to our fellow commissioners since that meeting because we cannot, because of Bagley Keene. So we haven't had any subsequent conversations. Again, at the February meeting, we did press to try to see like, well, if you can identify which specific petitions the full commission is most interested in. We didn't quite get that. I know that we did set aside we put placeholders in December in case we want extra. No, we didn't.
You asked staff to come back with a recommendation for late 24 and early 25 for committee as a whole.
You mean late
Late
25,
25,
early
26.
26?
I mean, 25, 26,
Yep.
sorry.
I wasn't there for that part of the meeting. It
That's
happened
right.
after
That's
I
what the
left.
recommendation was.
Okay.
Yeah, and
So I think that we don't know yet, but again, as we said earlier, if we will absolutely say these petitions are going to be discussed by this body when we know. We don't know that yet. I don't know which, I got the sense from my fellow commissioners that they might want to be weighing in as a committee of the whole for all of them. I don't know if that's true or not.
yeah, I mean, there was some indication of that, but I don't think that's really was a predominant feeling. I do think, and I'm sort of coming up halfway in the middle of this, but I think in November when Samantha and I discussed, actual substance of it, we may be able to say that, let's just go plow through it, because we can do that. We may say, looking at these, okay, we need to go to the whole commission in December and let them decide. Let us all decide as a group how we divide it. So I think that in that November, December timeframe is when you'll start to see that what we're gonna do that way.
Yeah, one other thing that you missed while you were in the restroom is Anupa was asking, so we sort of daylighted a potential area of different expectations for the November MRC meeting. So the department will be coming back with proposed recommendations, draft recommendations, initial draft concept discussion, recommendations for specific MP.
There'll be our recommendation.
There'll be
Initial
the,
discussion.
right.
But
It will also be the first time, people have been showing up at meetings, we keep saying now's not the time to talk about specific petitions. This will be the first time that we can do that. It wasn't my expectation, especially given the interest from our fellow commissioners on the full commission. It wasn't my expectation that we would come out of the November MRC with recommendations or, having endorsed their recommendations. That wasn't my expectation.
100%, I agree with you, 100% of that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the idea would be that's when they get, the first recommendations from the department get aired. We'll have we'll take, that's when people are gonna get the chance, we're gonna have a very long meeting that day. We may want to make that just MRC, that may be a 2-day meeting or
For sure, yeah.
right? We'll get a lot of feedback then, and we should.
Sleepover.
I won't be a hard ass that day. I mean, I won't share that. I'll come in. I'll be here.
Yeah.
Promise I'll be here. And then that'll start to format it, because we'll see what they look like, right? And we'll see what the info we get. And maybe if we feel very comfortable, not at that meeting, but probably at the March meeting.
I don't think it's realistic to think we're gonna come out of the November
Yeah,
MRCs
no,
having endorsed the
I don't think there'll be
recommendations.
unanimous support for the department's recommendations.
No.
Yeah, so, but we will be able to say, hey, look at all this, here's what we're thinking about, the next step in the
100%.
process, that's what'll come out.
But I
of
do
that
think
day.
we owe it to petitioners and stakeholders who have been following this process for, I'll say 2 years or at least 16, 17 months and wanting to say things about specific petitions. We need to give that opportunity.
Yeah, 100%, there's no disagreement with this. Yeah, perfect. Does that help? Everybody?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to
Sure.
add one more thought on that. Our sort of goal with this timeline is really truly the transparency aspect that you're talking about, right? We want everybody in the room to have all of the pertinent information available so we can have really informed discussion about the decision making. So we want the MRC and the commission to have that evaluation and all the information gathering in place, so that can inform the discussions that we've got moving forward. And we're all on the same page. So the transparency piece is a big part of that timeline.
Right, and along those lines, I think at the December meeting, having had that November meeting, without us having made specific recommendations, at the December meeting, we'll see what the whole commission wants to do. And they may say, MRC, take them all back and do them in March and come back with that. They may say these three, we want to do this pretty whole, and the rest do that. We just don't know yet. But the December meeting will be, if we stay on this timeline,
Yeah.
that core kind of sorting and where it's going to take place will probably, the discussion at least will happen then. I don't know if we'll get decided then. I don't think it.
I think that's right, yeah. And then your third, or I think it was the third question, maybe, was this issue about C-Sketch versus the department using the same data, but not using C-Sketch. I mean, for me, I'm a cheerleader for C-Sketch because I'm not a GIS expert, right? That's just not what I do, right? So I like the visualization component of it. My understanding, I don't want to speak for the department about what you meant when you said that, but my understanding is you have a whole lot of GIS experts. So you can work with the data in other ways that aren't shiny and beautiful. But what I like about C-Sketch is we can take that same data that you're using and make it accessible and understandable to members of the public who don't have that skill set, like me. So I think it's the same information. You probably have more information as well that you'll be using. But I don't want you to walk away thinking there's two different processes or two different sets of data, and you don't get to see the black box one or something. I think it's all the same information, right? Yeah.
Yes, and we can disclose it on the evaluation framework of, you know, the historical data that was pulled, resources that were used, like there's a references section in the draft. So, that's really great. I mean, and that's a lot. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keith Rootsart with the Giant Kelp Restoration project in Monterey. My time doing this DMR petition is even before this, because we had applied in 2020 to do the Tankers Reef or in the MPAs, and we were told you can't do the MPAs, you can do Tankers Reef. And then Tankers Reef went 3 years, and then we have a year after that, and now we're doing the report, and still I'm in this process, right, of doing this. And I don't see on here where we're really coming out with any actionable item. And I had talked at the last MRC commission, MRC meeting, that I need to get going in April of this year, because conditions are like that, and we need to get going with a lot of other things, the blue economy and other efforts. So, and I said in my written comments too, that we're going to start doing kelp restoration with the existing rules at Tankers Reef. We're going to use the commercial urchin divers, Jeff Moss, you heard him today, and others to go ahead and remove the purple urchins with airlift in the place, and we'll remove the red urchins with bags. And we'll just start going, and we'll develop it as it goes, and then maybe when you catch up with us in a year, you'll be further along, and we can go into the MPAs at that point. But it's just, it's not, I understand the process. I'm not blaming any. Yes.
You might want to check with enforcement about what role that.
Again, this is not about giant kelp. This is about the process we're doing. I understand you're saying the frustration with the.
Yes, I'm voicing my frustration, my Charlie Brown.
We understand.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I do love the shirt. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mio Senzaki. I'm with Environment California. I'll make my comment very brief. And we just request that the Fish and Game Commission establish clear outreach expectations for each MPA petition, as the lack of clarity on this issue has made it more difficult for petitioners and stakeholders to engage in the process. So clear expectations will ensure, a meaningful process, meaningful participatory process. Yeah.
Outreach is a challenge always. But this process has been very public, and we notice every meeting, and we're getting better, I think, at specifically in the notice spelling out exactly what we're doing at that meeting. We've been very conscious of trying to do that. So I mean, I don't know what much more we can do in this process.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of outreach expectations, I also feel like from the dais, I think we've been very clear in saying, the more outreach, the better. Everybody wins if there's more outreach, right? Because as Eric said before, people come up with a petition that everybody agrees on. It's a compromise. The commission responds very positively to something like that usually versus something where everybody disagrees. So there's a linear relationship between outreach and community work and outcome, I think, probably.
Well, I just add, thank you for the comments. I think this timeline is, I think, one good attempt to our end to do that, just to be really clear with what the steps are, and then to be very thoughtful and deliberate with what are the design criteria. Let's agree to that. Then we'll go use that, or the evaluation criteria. I think In terms of, outreach and communications, we heard it about, getting people together to talk about it. So when we did MLPA, I guess 1.0, right, the state and the partners brought people together to have those discussions. We're not doing that in this model. And so I think we need to be really clear and transparent that that's not part of this process that we're proposing.
You said it better. I tried to say that. You said it better than I did. That, this is happening within the context of the Fish and Game Commission and its subcommittee. And so we have a process of notifying people. It's not perfect. People have to be interested and pay attention, but it is posted. So I did, encourage folks like you and your organization to let your people know as best you can. But so I'm just, I think it's more to not set expectations that we're going to be able to do big community workshop stuff. That's not part of this process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think for those who were here this morning, when we were talking about the proposed aquaculture lease, I think there was a good lesson learned in that about what happens if there isn't lots of community outreach. And so.
Example of how not to do it.
I just think it's more difficult for us when it looks like that than when people come up sort of together saying that they are, that they have a lot of agreement. We don't expect consensus. Consensus is elusive, maybe impossible if you mean 100% consensus, but having some support from folks on, with different perspectives and on the other side of the aisle is very helpful in this commission process.
Yeah, and I want to say just broadly, I feel like there's been a lot more of that work between stakeholders lately,
sure.
where folks are coming to us and saying, hey, we've talked among ourselves and worked this out. And the more that happens, the more trust that develops between, say, NGOs and the commercial fishing community, for example, the better outcomes are going to be for everybody over the long run. So we really appreciate that. And we've seen a lot more. Anybody else in the room want to speak? Speak now or forever, not forever, but for today, hold your peace. Okay, we're going to turn to online. Okay, let's go ahead and take the slideshow down. I think people understand what we're looking at. We can see them better. And we go back to my Zoom. Call the first person.
First person's
Yeah.
Brent.
I'm going to give another quick reminder. We're talking about 5A, which includes 5A1 and 5A2, A and B. And we're just taking comments on those topics. And again, in the interest of time, no need to tell us whether you love MPAs or hate them. This is about the process that we're going through with these petitions. And of course, the other topics we talked about, law enforcement's presentation or court presentation, and also Craig's presentations on the numbers and the set GillNet update. So with that, Brent, please go ahead. Go ahead and unmute yourself and come on. Hey, Brent, you're first.
Well, thank you all. First of all, I'd like to thank the game wardens. I do believe in them and the men and women, but I don't believe in this board. The lady that's running the board doesn't even know what a coyote is. She told us last time. Eric, my friend, hang on. I get to talk. This is America. You work for us. You work for us.
Under public comment, you can talk about anything in general.
It's a public comment, my guy. You work for us.
On this topic? Do we mute him or did he mute him? I think you muted Brett. I think you muted yourself. We can't hear you. You're still muted.
There we go. I've unmuted myself. Now, you told us about fossil fuels was ruining our kelp beds and just in that last segment, you said that. That's your own personal opinion. We're not that you guys got these you got these windmills over there on the East Coast that are killing 15,000 whales. And you're telling me about your energy? That's your opinion. You work for us. I want you to know that. You can cut me off. I'm coming to your meetings because I am passionate about this. This is my ocean. You guys are shutting down everything. Laguna was a big mistake, but you got all those ladies behind you clapping you on.
Let you go for a minute. But did you have a comment on the topic?
I do. I would like to tell a story. Thank you. I am the best lobster diver out there. I have over 50 that are over 10 pounds. I've been under investigation 5 times because I'm so good. With zero fines. Now, did you know, Eric, that because of your rules, I can't grab a 10-pound lobster and put it back into an MPA. Did you know that? So that forces me to kill it and eat it. And I enjoy doing that. So that's my time for this time. Next time I'll come up and we'll look at each other. And you can't cut me off. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry, please. Terry Kennedy, go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead, please.
Yep, hold on just a sec. It looked like I was more like fourth in line there.
Got it. Okay, I made it on different screens.
Okay, so I wasn't ready.
We can come back, Terry, if you want.
Yeah, come back to me. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I thought I was looking at the order.
I'm gonna call them out, please, everybody. Gail, next, please.
Charlotte.
It's different on every screen, so I'm calling them on Wednesday. Charlotte, go ahead, please.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay. I'm really disappointed. I've spent all day waiting to speak in support, or for many people, against these petitions today. And now you tell me I can't. And I don't see how you can make a good evaluation without hearing from us. I mean, how do we now ask?
And let me explain, Charlotte, real quickly. The agenda states very specifically what we're going to talk about today. If you'd like to talk more generally, you can during public comment at the end of the meeting, because that can be on any topic not on the agenda. We're actually required by law to state what we're going to talk about and then stick to that, or it's violating state law. So I'm sorry for the confusion. If you want to talk generally about the MPAs, please do it at our last item, which is public comment, okay?
Okay, can I speak about, even though it's a subject that we're talking about now, I can still speak at public comment about this?
Yes, you can, of course.
Okay.
Because this is very specific about a specific part of the MPAs, whereas the other one's general and it's not on the agenda, so yes. Okay.
Well, it's too bad that we weren't better informed on this.
I'm sorry you weren't. Gail, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Commission. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Gail Waite, and I'm president of Laguna Canyon Conservancy. And I'll make some comments about what I think you want us to make comments about. Just for background, Laguna Canyon Conservancy is an all-volunteer, nonprofit environmental group founded in 1988 to save and protect Laguna Canyon. We have been, involved in expanding the South Coast Wilderness Nature Preserves of Orange County that now include over 22,000 acres of parks, open space, and marine preserves. So today's presentations were actually very informative, and I would like to comment on two parts of today's meeting. Regarding the violations, I mean, it was disappointing to see how high the ones in Orange County number. And so knowing from trail rangers that there's problems with people abusing our environment, marine, canyons, whatever, I hope that when the warnings are not just warnings, but they warrant citations, especially for juveniles, that there is a way to perhaps involve the guardian or parent of that juvenile when it's, elevated to the status of a citation. So I think that might help with repeat offenders. I wonder if there's a program for something like that. And
well,
let me
address that. If you're a juvenile, you're required to bring a parent with you to court. So parents are involved at that time when it goes from warning to citation.
That's great. And so regarding adult offenders that are maybe repeat or even the citation level, is there sort of like a police blotter where it's published that people can see these people? Because unfortunately, the world today revolves around social media and, publications of people that aren't, let's say, playing by the rules.
I think I know the answer to that, but maybe I'll let the chief answer. The law enforcement can't publish those names of people who are cited or certainly not warned. The newspaper can if it's a public court hearing. But, and then it can be in a blotter, but as you probably know, I look from a small town and we hear every week everything that happened, but names are excluded because generally that's not a great idea.
I know it's not a great idea, but for, they are published in many cases. So, but I'm just saying perhaps it's for the more serious offenders.
Yeah, it's up to the press.
If it reaches a certain level, that perhaps.
You're right. So you're absolutely right. On the real severe stuff, it does get, the releases are sometimes published.
Yes, they are. So, okay, my last comment is regarding, my purpose today, for which I devoted most of my day, was to speak in support of a specific petition, which I gather you do not wish. And yet I can tell you my organization has sent in letters to the commission at least twice, by mail, by email, and we never receive an acknowledgement that it's been received, which to me is kind of pretty basic to expect. If some organization supports a petition, why we don't get acknowledgement that we have received your communication.
Yeah, Melissa, do you want to answer how we acknowledge receipt?
Yeah, so when letters are sent to the commission via email, the email system will let you know that correspondence has been received. Typically, when we receive something in writing in the office, we receive sometimes hundreds, thousands of correspondence. We aren't able to respond to each of those individually. We can electronically because the system does it for us. We don't have to respond to each one individually.
Yeah, got that. So yeah, if it's sent by snail mail, we don't have the capability of letting you know we got it. But believe me, the odds of us not getting it, not showing up in the commissioner's packet is very, very small. And it's just that the reason we haven't responded about them here is because we're not dealing with that yet. I know a lot of people, the minute the petitions were in, wanted to talk about them. There's a multi-year process before we can even begin that. What we'll see in November and December, we'll start to, and those letters will be part of that process. So thank you very much. I'm gonna go to the next speaker. Mike Beenan, please. Got to unmute yourself. Mike Beenan, can you unmute yourself?
Yes,
there you go.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, Mike Beenan, co-founder of Laguna Blue Belt Coalition. I want to thank you for including us in this process to evaluate and hopefully approve petition 202324-R to protect all of Laguna's marine life. Since most objections to petitions warn of lost fishing income, I think it would be useful to have a process that has site-specific socioeconomic data and cost benefits based upon CFG logs. By the way, based upon stakeholder input, we did submit a petition to increase enforcement along one common latitude line. Our original petition followed Laguna Beach city limits extending southwesterly from the shore, but this made the determination of the offshore boundary difficult to participants at a recent stakeholder meeting hosted by the Orange County Marine Protected Area Collaborative in Dana Point. While there's some debate about who made the suggestion, which led to an unfortunate misunderstanding, the revised petition before you is a smaller SMCA no-take than originally requested, but still protects kelp and essential fish habitats. Fortunately, Laguna's unique MPAs have dramatically improved recreation, education, and enforcement by marine safety lifeguards, park rangers, and community volunteers.
Mike, I thought you were going to ask about process for information flow during this thing. We're not talking about individual petitions now. If you'd like to talk about that, bring it up, please, under general public comment at the end of the meeting. Okay?
Yes, but I was speaking to enforcement, our enforcement capacity in Laguna Beach.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Go.
Okay.
That wasn't really clear to any of us, but okay.
But I'll reserve my comments to later. But I did want to point out that we mobilized a lot of people to speak.
He is not. He's talking about other stuff.
Will you please mute? Mike, it's not real clear what you're getting. What are you asking of law enforcement?
Well, what we're saying is we need more data because a lot of the objections are on economic issues to these petitions, and yet we have no data on site-specific income.
I see what you're saying. Okay. Thank you.
That's part of the process, I think.
Yeah, got it, Mike. That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
You bet. Next, Jinger Wallace, please. Ginger Wallace, go ahead and unmute yourself. Ginger Wallace.
Hello.
There you go.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Sorry about all the confusion. When I read the agenda and through the documents, I tried to be very thorough. And I saw the staff mention their praise for the Channel Islands letter that made some recommendations about the planning and evaluation phase that we're in. But that particular letter included reference to the Channel Island petition. And so that's why many of us were confused. We tried to talk about evaluation, but
right. Thank you. Thank you. You have comments on the specific agenda item?
Yes, I do. But you'll have to forgive me because I'm going to have to chop everything, I had planned to say up. So read between the lines. I wanted to let you know that I think that to evaluate our petitions, we need to look at the specific MPA goals. And those goals are very well spelled out. They were spelled out in the Channel Islands petition, but they talk about, for example, in those petitions that increase natural diversity and abundance of marine life. So if we can look at the petitions and see, do they accomplish that? Others include intrinsic value. What intrinsic value do these petitions bring? A fourth would be, probably most important, would be how does this petition improve the network of MPAs? And we all know from the last review that bigger turned out to be more successful. And certainly the connection between the various MPAs, how in terms of larvae and connectivity and greater biodiversity is really critical. Just lastly, I just would like to remind you that in researching the MLPA, they made quite a comment that surprised me, that the MLPA prioritizes conservation over economics, not to dismiss the impacts, of course, but to emphasize conservation. So I hope that when you review the petitions, you'll look at these broader categories. Thank you.
Yeah, very helpful. Thank you very much for the comment. Zoe Collins, please.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Zoe Collins, and I'm the MPA program coordinator at Heal the Bay, which is a nonprofit operating in LA County. I coordinate LA's MPA Watch chapter, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to share some brief thoughts at today's MRC meeting. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for the very clear presentation and explanation of the process. This timeline seems to be realistic, and Heal the Bay certainly supports and is grateful for the clear breakdown of the process. I'd also like to quickly echo some of the comments on both the submitted letters and the other speakers today that we're looking forward to learning more information as it becomes available regarding the nature of a full commission MRC style meeting. We're excited for those discussions, but an altered format will certainly change opportunities and expectations for community engagement in the process. And I understand there are lots of unknowns at present, but would just like to emphasize a need for more information on how exactly this will fit into the timeline and process that is outlined here. So thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Zoe. Next, Raymond.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to talk. I wanted to start off by commenting on item 5A1, the enforcement. I think I know why Morro Bay is doing so much better than it was. When I was out there paddling around hunting Brant geese, the signage was absolutely amazing. And even in the fog and everything else, I knew whether I was in or out of the MPA. So I just want to mention that type of help really makes a difference. On item 5.2, the process, I specifically want to look at having an outreach to local entities that are interested. For instance, in the City of Laguna Beach letter that they sent in, they requested creation of a task force that includes commission staff to help, discuss this item there. So I just think, they're asking for that outreach, and it would be great if they had the opportunity to work closer with staff during this process. Thank you.
Ray, I'm just going to be transparent and honest with you. We don't have the resources. The committee doesn't, the commission doesn't, and the staff doesn't to do all external meetings that way. We have made it clear to the staff that local authorities, city councils and so on in a given area should be notified and be aware of our process, but it's all going to happen at a committee or commission meeting.
Okay, thank you. I mean, we did have an excellent city council meeting where that letter ended up being generated that was respectful and everything else. I just wanted to highlight that they were asking for that. Thank you for your answer.
We wish we had the resources to do that, but we don't. Thank you, Ray. Jamie Diamond, please.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Jamie Diamond with Stardust Sport Fishing out of Santa Barbara. Very cold day in the harbor today. Anyways, I just wanted to thank law enforcement for the really great report. It's really helpful and informative. But I also want to just add the idea of a common theme that we hear here, as well as at the Pacific Fisheries Management Council when dealing with enforcement, is the more complex regulations get, the more difficult enforcement gets, because it makes it more difficult for compliance as well. And so just in the grand scheme of things, ways in which we can still offer rules that are necessary, but in a streamlined way, is really helpful, because the more layers of complexity, layers of closure areas or take areas or seasons and funny lines around the water, it makes it more difficult for people to comply sometimes. And yep, when you buy your license, you say you are responsible for knowing those rules and regulations. Absolutely. I'm a firm believer of that. But I just want to, as we're getting into the next phases with MPAs and other things, just every time you add a layer of rule or regulation, it makes things more complex and difficult. So just putting that out there. I had the opportunity to visit Natural Bridges area recently, and it was absolutely stunning, but the signage there was rough. And so I could see from a high public use area where compliance might be difficult if you were not familiar or looking for signage. So that was just kind of a anecdotal into that. As far as logbooks, I'm really excited about the upgrade and updates to electronic logbooks for the CPFB fleet. The logbooks have been a really useful tool, definitely a step up from paper logbooks, but looking forward to much improved systems to make it easier for the guys on the water to utilize this tool. I know that your tech support gets a lot of calls because things get jammed up. It's an older system, and so we're really looking forward to moving forward with something that can help you guys and us with that. So thank you. That's it. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jamie. Annie, please. Annie, are you there? Can you unmute? Annie, do you want to unmute?
Yeah, hi. Sorry about that. My name is Art Seavey, and I'm calling to.
Are you calling from Annie's phone?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. Thank you. That helped you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No worries.
My wife's Zoom account.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I'm just calling regarding the impacts, the potential impacts of these of these petition MPAs to the economic and recreational opportunities for people, especially in.
Hey, Art, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. Well, that's going to be discussion in November and December. This is just about whether the process for how we discuss it is one that you support or have suggestions on. So if you have suggestions on the process, let us know. Otherwise, we'll be talking about that in November and December.
Okay. I mean, so I guess what my suggestion is that, I mean, there's going to be no discussion of the environmental values of these proposed MPAs, and apparently no discussion of economic or recreational impacts. Art, we're
going to talk about all that. That's what that discussion will be about when we get there. We're just not there yet.
Okay. All right. In November, you said.
Yes, in November.
Yep, in November, December. So I'm gonna, okay. And any questions on, any suggestions on the process?
Other than, none other than to include an assessment of economic and recreational impacts. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you. Okay, next speaker is your saltwater guide.
Hey, thank you very much for taking the time. Myself and my family have been involved in the MLPA system since it very started, 1999. And I just wanted to thank you all very, very much. And I'm being serious. All I've heard the whole time from you guys is transparency. That is going to be such a wonderful thing. And we're very excited about that. We've been in this thing the whole time. And the one thing that's been lacking is transparency. So thank you so much, every one of you, to give yourself a pat on the back, because that's something that we have never had in this process. So all of us that are in the industry are very excited about that. So thank you guys very, very much from the bottom of my heart. The next thing is the enforcement part of this. And it's the reason why it's such a big number in Orange County is because it's in one of the most beautiful cities on the planet Earth. So the temptation is there. I'm just trying to explain it to the people that don't understand. Laguna Beach, California, there's nothing like that on the planet Earth. So it's a temptation that most people can't understand. If you're a child, if you're a young person and you have a fishing pole and you've learned how to fish, you want to go to Laguna. It is absolutely spectacular. And like Jamie was saying, the more layers you put on it, the harder it's going to be. And these young people, they're not. I heard some people saying, hey, can we volunteer to help? Listen, I just want to help those that want to volunteer to help law enforcement. They carry guns for a reason. So be very careful out there thinking you're going to stop somebody from fishing in the ocean. Just be careful. I'm just saying, it's not a threat because I don't care. I live in Mexico. So do whatever you want to do, but there's law enforcement for a reason. So be careful. Then as far as, that's it?
Well, no, do you have to comment on our process for the MPA process or on
that's what I'm doing. You said,
okay, go ahead.
Direction. You said enforcement. That's where I started. Now I'm going to the process. So the process, we're super excited about the way that the process is going to be done. For the first time, there's going to be transparency, because back in the very beginning, we all got to look at 3 maps, the whole process. And then the day that the decision was made, there was a 4th map that came out of nowhere. It's documented. Everybody can see it. So I'm glad and I'm happy that there's going to be transparency. So that's it. I thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Blake Herman. Blake, go ahead. There you go.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Hey, everyone. Blake Herman, petitioner, petition 15. Speaking specifically to the process here and referencing something that I did submit under this agenda item. Very glad and very hopeful kind of seeing the master plans being utilized in the way that they're being utilized as the primary driver of this evaluation framework. I mean, the objectives, the way it breaks down the MLPA goals and lays it out into clear objectives that are measurable, definable, and can be used and applied on these petitions is something we don't really see anywhere else. They're very unique to these master plans. So I'm very thankful to being able to see that on the evaluation timeline. And yes, speaking to the document that I did submit regarding an analysis of my petition through the master plan objectives, I'm not going to speak onto what it analyzes in specificness, but kind of just that could act as a template in a way to kind of show how an evaluation framework through the master plans could look. And I just very much encourage anyone to take a look at that, because the really beautiful documents when you go through them and see the way that they lay everything. So just thank you for that.
Thank you, Blake. Ethan, please.
Yeah, I actually want to just support what Blake just said about using the master plans. Some of the petitions, in my opinion, are trying to move the goalposts with MPAs. So I think the master plan is kind of our guiding star with this. And you did so well with the bin 1 petitions. I think that really builds a lot of trust going into this process with the more controversial petitions. So thank you for that. And just keep up the great work. All Waters is really stoked on what you're doing. So keep up the transparency and everything. Thank you.
Thanks, Ethan. Appreciate it. Brian, Taniguchi, please.
Hi, it's Brian Taniguchi. I'm a diver and interested in watching for kelp forest health and restoration. I really got a lot of information out of that law enforcement report, so I thank you very much for putting that together. I have a couple of comments regarding that, or suggestions, I should say. I noticed when you do more monitoring, you get more violations. It might be helpful to have a chart, XY chart, showing number of violations versus monitoring effort, and see what that looks like, to see what the efficiency of monitoring is. Another suggestion is, a lot of people use Google Maps, and I'm wondering whether there's a way to have Google overlay the MPAs on their maps so that people can real-time see where the MPAs are, and even if their location is on their phone, they can see whether they're in the MPA or not in the MPA. So just a suggestion. Thank you very much.
Brian, while you were asking, I see some head shaking here. Yes, so Craig, go ahead, please.
So Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, but the KMZ files is what Google Maps use. You can download those off our website and use the Google Map on your computer. I don't have the ability to do that on my phone, but we also have the ocean fishing guide on your phone, which has the map layers on them and tells you where you are in real time, as long as you have cell service.
Cell service. Yeah, so Brian, there's a couple different ways you can do that, but thanks for that comment and question. Next, Jack Likens, please.
Thank you, commissioners. My comment is in regard to the wardens. Personally, I think that spending money to improve enforcement and public education is one of the best ways that the commission and the department can spend their money. So I'd like to encourage you to do that. And I just have one question of the wardens. I've heard anecdotally that there's been an increase or a lot of poaching on the North Coast since the closure of the abalone season. And I was wondering if the wardens had any statistics on that, or if because of the closure, maybe they weren't spending as much time trying to enforce their abalone regulations. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Please, Assistant Chief.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Actually, the officers up there spend a lot of time looking for abalone poachers. If you look at our social media, we released a few big cases that we've had recently. So we've made some pretty significant cases on some very large abalone poaching busts. So we continue to be vigilant about that as well.
Yeah, I guess I would put it this way, Jack, that there's some feeling that having fewer legal abalone divers in the water means more poachers have less eyes on them, and that may or may not be true. It's really hard to get to a correlation and causation there, because it's just impossible to get the data. So I understand that concern, but the folks, I think in some ways, my observation has been lately, the law enforcement has been really focused on that and have made some really good busts on poachers.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
Harry Kennedy. He's supposed to read.
No, this one that wasn't
Wasn't ready. Oh, Terry, you ready now?
I am ready, and I learned how to unmute. All right. Hey, so I am one of those little fishermen. I'm one of those guys out on a kayak and stuff like that. And 10 years ago, and if you could just give me, I mean, I don't know, probably take me a minute and a half to say what I'm going to say. It's all stemmed from when the warden was giving numbers on, patrol hours and expenses and how many violations and all that. That's really what I have to talk about. And it's kind of just in a sense to just sort of give you my feelings on, hey, here's a better way to look at it. I might not have a discussion on how to change how things are discussed or whatnot. I'm not sure if I'm following the rules here, but if you could give me about a minute and a half, I've had so much time to actually write this down. I'll just read it. Sound good?
Yeah, go for it, Terry.
Okay. So, like I said, I'm a small craft fisherman. I mean, I started on a kayak 20 years ago. The current MPAs took a lot of my accessible fishing away, just because I was a paddle guy. But I adapted, now I fish from a pond prowler that I could, it's a little plastic boat that I can put a motor on and I can actually reach the areas now. But now this is coming up again. We're looking at, expanding or whatnot. Occasionally I fish from larger fishing boats as well. Sometimes I catch limits, sometimes I don't. Actually, most of the time I don't. Saltwater guide's laughing at me right now. Sometimes I take them home, but most of the time they're released unharmed. And, I use a descender on rockfish, things like that. I'm very much a fan of conservation and respecting my fisheries, right? Most of us are. I said this over 10 years ago when we went through this before. I'll say it again. I have never or has the small navy of us little recreational fishermen been a measurable impact on fish populations. Science proves that. You guys know that. I mean, we take home a duffel bag worth of fish on the best day, right? But it all applied to us too, and most of us back then, we didn't have the GPS capabilities and that, like Brian was saying, we could get a ticket and it was literally like we didn't know. But most wardens are very logical, very level-minded. They're going to take your level of, hey, I really didn't know. And a lot of the times they were cool about it, but that was very unclear. So I want to kind of reiterate what Brian said, that there needs to be more clear. I know that there were other links and other options to get those overlays on maps, which I will look those up. But me as just a little plastic boat fisherman, I don't have the technology, and I kind of have to do the whole looking at the shoreline, like all the guys out there have taught me. Okay, well, you look at the dome, and if you're lined up with this, then well, you're out of the MPA or whatever, right? That sucks, because if you get a ticket, it's huge. So I definitely want to echo Brian on that there needs to be more clear. I mean, seriously, even if you have to go dropping an engine in the water and putting a buoy there on the corner of an MPA saying, hey, anything south or east of this, don't fish it, right? Something within eye's view. But I will say, millions of dollars are spent on the fuel and time and wages patrolling these areas to ticket and, take our money from the recreational fishermen, the little guys, right? Because we don't have the funds to fight this whole thing. That you proved that 12 years ago or whatever. We lost bad, right? Ticketing the average recreational angler is a huge waste of money, time, fossil fuel for very little impact on us, right? Or should I say from us, right?
Jerry, can you wrap up?
I basically, I'll finish with this. Maybe think about stop targeting the little guys. I mean, spend all this money on really researching, looking at the science. All this stuff has been discussed during this meeting, the science and all this stuff. And you've got people that have given their feels, and then you've got people that have given logical stuff. Spend the money on, bag limits, enforcing those. We're all fine with those, make them tighter, regulating abusive, fishing practices, poaching, things like that. That's all stuff we stand for. And most of all, the storm runoff pollution, that's what's killing our oceans. And it just seems like everybody just ignores that. I'll stop there, but it just seems like the money's kind of just in enforcement, and it's like they're just getting us. I've almost gotten a ticket myself, and the warden told me how much it would be. And it's like, ouch.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to the next speaker. Thank you very much. Zach, please.
Hello. My name is Zach. I'm involved with the San Diego chapter of the Surfrider Foundation. I just wanted some clarification on the process for how the bin 2 petitions are going to be amended. I'm aware that the NGOs tomorrow have a deadline to submit amendments to their, or not the NGOs, but the petition filers to submit their amendments to their initial petitions. But I think it was also mentioned a little bit earlier that these petitions could change all the way up until the final vote by the commission. So I was wondering if there was ever any kind of like deadline where the petitions were basically going to be like set in stone. Personally, like I'm all for them being able to be amended all the way up until they're voted on. I mean, if there's like a deal that can come together and
Zach, let me interrupt and explain. Maybe it's amending is a term of art, and maybe a little bit here. What we're saying is the people who submitted the petitions, given some input over the first year or two, did they want to make changes before we really started digging into them? We're not going to. They can always send in a letter saying, "Hey, we're willing to give this up, or we're willing to change that." But in the end, it's the final amending process, if you want to call it that, is the final commission discussions when we vote on it. So we want to set a deadline so that people really saw major changes they wanted to make in their petitions before we got into the meat of the process, they'd have a chance to do so. We set that deadline, but it is then a process that substantively will start in November and continue on for as long as it takes to actually decide how we're going to come down on each of these petitions. Does that help?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
All right, my pleasure. I see Merritt has a comment, I think probably on the mapping, right?
Right, exactly, on the mapping. So long ago, I discovered there's an app. It's not available for iPhone, but it is for the droids, called Map Pinner or Map Inner. There's only one P in it. It's all run together. And it allows you to mash up your own KML files which are resident on your phone with the Google Maps file, so you can see the whole thing there and you can zoom in as far as you want. I am no spring chicken. I'm working on my 10th issue of my master's license for running charter boats. If I can do this, anybody.
So you mean I can't?
I've got the 20 fathom point-to-point lines on there that the state has, and the federal, all the different federal ones, the 30, 50, 70, etc. It's possible to do. Once again, the app is Mapinner, M-A-P-I-N-E-R. Look it up. It's old. It's simple. Even I can do it.
Thanks, Merritt. Hey, Chris, do you have something briefly?
No.
You don't?
I'm waiting for general public. I'm trying to be first in line.
Okay.
Other agenda item before that.
Stay
there. Yeah.
Okay. So, Samantha, unless you have anything on that one, I think we've made it clear that where we are and we've given our input.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks to everybody.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
And,
Want to reiterate though, I do want to reiterate petitions. We have petitions from tribes, fishermen, NGOs, many different petitioners. And so I don't, they are not a monolith. I don't want to paint them all with some broad brush, right? So petitioners from lots of different kinds of folks, from lots of different walks of life and experiences. And so this is, everybody wanted to submit petitions. And here we are talking about how to move forward with them. Yeah.
I guess I would add, it's really under item 6 and we'll get to it officially, but I want to mention, Samantha and I both originally said we should start doing 2 days of MRC so that we can have a whole day just devoted to MPAs. We thought because today was really just a narrow little sliver of the process, we could do it and still get through our stuff. Yeah, right. It's gonna, and we've made folks wait all day to speak on important topics. That was a mistake on our part, not keeping MPA separate today. Going forward, for as long as we need to, we'll try to do a 2-day MRC with one devoted entirely to MPAs. That way I don't have to be such a hard ass, but it's really a matter of fairness to people who have other topics here that I have to do that. I don't like doing it. And we want to hear everything everybody has to say, but we also have a job to do in terms of making sure everybody gets to have their topic heard.